Back to another episode of the Jiggy With This podcast. I got criminal justice reforms advocate Vidal Guzman. Vidal's an entrepreneur and he has multiple businesses. He's also part of the Close Rikers campaign, right?
Yeah.
And his story is to empower others and basically try to try to reform criminals and have them come out of jail to pretty much accustomed to an everyday life.
Yeah, definitely. I think you hit everything on point. I think those are things I'm working on. I am an abolitionist. I believe that people shouldn't be incarcerated, but we're not at that level. And what I mean is that's making sure that people get the right help they actually need before someone even lands in incarceration. People just don't do crime because they do crime. Poverty exists, underfunded, over incarcerated communities. And you have a system that oppresses people. So there's so many different layers of oppression that we need to pull from.
Okay, so we grew up with each other. We know each other from the hood and everything. So we used to play ball with each other every day, pretty much, and everything. So, tell us about your story, what led you from being the kid that was out in the streets doing the bad stuff to actually getting on the right path now and trying to fix everybody else, help everybody else follow the right path.
Yeah, before I even start that, I think people ask who mentored me while I was incarcerated. Yeah. I was around people. I was around people who had 25 to life, and some people who already had 35 years in with no possibility to be paroled. So they was gonna spend their whole life there and die in there. Yeah. And I think those individuals became my mentors who actually put me in a path to believing in myself and actually saying, if you hear no, when I mean no, it's the system or, coming to the world, you're going to hear so many no's, especially having the background that I had. So a little bit about my life. I was homeless when I was 5, 6 years old, 8 or 9 years old. I started selling drugs with my older brother. And then at times when you see me out there, I was really out in the street, still trying to still be a teenager while still being a man in the house and trying to put food on the table and make sure we had a roof over our head. 14, 15 years old, became really active in the gang culture. And before even that, I was already a part of the gang culture. So my first time being incarcerated was at 16, 17, did 2 years. And then at 18 years old, I was on probation. It's a certain moment for someone who never been, for a lot of people who never been incarcerated, about being incarcerated, right? It's different between seeing a movie of someone being incarcerated and then on a daily basis living and being detained.
But actually being there.
And it's a different world, there's a different world from being here, out freely, being able to go to the store, and being detained and incarcerated on a daily basis, trying to survive and have this mindset about the difference of being the wolf or the sheep. And what I mean is that either I'm gonna let people punk me or I'm gonna defend myself and do what I have to do as a human being to survive. So my past 2 years being on Rikers Island, it was me every single day trying to survive, fighting every single day to make sure people know I wasn't a guy to mess with. But I think, even before even that path, our school system, and my school system prepared me for jail, right? The prison school pipeline, the school to prison pipeline. And I think for a lot of people, it's how, and these are major parts that, from being being targeted, from being suspended, from being not having role models around me. My school system, especially when I was in third grade Marshall, being taking certain abilities to be a child as playing basketball, being on a basketball team, traveling with the team, or even going to the prom, or live or going to after school program, just having a regular life was took from me because of my me being a part of that gang culture. But we live in neighborhoods where people are just trying to survive. And I don't mean financially, right? I think, especially as myself, I mean really survive. Being able to think and being able to walk down the street it's not regular for us, right? We have to look behind our backs.
Yeah, make sure nothing's happening.
Yeah, we have to make sure we have this certain lens that other people who are not dealing with issues that we're dealing with won't understand, right? And I think in our neighborhoods, especially Black and brown neighborhoods, or neighborhoods that's dealing with poverty, we're just trying to survive. And I think when we're trying to survive, is the ability to take what we have, but also not be comfortable with it. So I think my whole life I've been trying to survive. Been trying to either not to fit in society, but also been trying to find my path. Without having role models to teach you what is a path. What is the ground, what street should I walk, or how should I walk to this path. So yeah.
Just have to basically carry yourself in public settings and everything, and just not come off the wrong way to someone else, or just try to pretty much be in the right position as far as life goes.
Yeah, man. I think a lot of times, where I'm at now and then where I was at before, the mentors was the individuals that helped me to prepare to come back home. I did my time. I did 2.5 years in solitary confinement. For a lot of people that don't know what solitary confinement is, solitary confinement is a small place. It's probably half this room.
Wow.
And probably one third of this room where you have a bathroom and a sink, and a mirror. Sometimes you can't see your face, sometimes you can. And 2.5 years of doing that, because of the gang culture I was a part of, being on hunger strikes where other people were part of that gang culture too. I think for me, 2.5 years, I remember, my mentor, who was at that time, had 35 years, no possibility to come home or be paroled. I remember the conversation he had with me. He was like, he'd seen someone that came back to the same facility. It was his 4th time. And he was like, what is wrong with people of failing and hearing no's? And it said, people should never give up. Figure out why people said no, and keep fighting until you hear that yes, and get addicted to hearing yes, because that yes is successful. And I never understood what that meant until my 2nd time of being in solitary confinement. I did 7 years, 7 years of my life. 7 years for anyone is a moment of cherished. And I looked myself in the mirror and I asked myself, what got me here? What's next? And how can I get myself out of here? And I had to tell myself, I got myself here in some type of way. It wasn't just the system. It's how I thought. So yeah, I asked myself, what is next for me when I come home? Because I had someone right next to me who was doing life and was 22 years old, and I had someone right next to me who was 67 years old. And I had to, there's a certain moment, and that moment was that breaking point of saying 7 years. 7 years of what exactly is next for me. And I came home on a path, but also on a mission, and also on a chip on my shoulder, saying I'm gonna take advantage of life, because there's people right now who can't take advantage of life because either they're physically not here, because we're living in communities, as me and people who passed away because of gun violence or violence itself, or are incarcerated their whole life, so they don't have the abilities to live a free life. I think as human beings, we take advantage of that, of being a human and having regular life where you're able to just go to the store, and some people are not able to do that. Some people are not able to just call their family when they want to, or able to see their family when they want to. So yeah, it's not, it's
hard.
Yes, it's hard, but usually, hopefully, my story and other people's story will be able to kind of push the culture forward. But when I mean the culture, is to get people more active and involved, but educate people to understand this is happening. You can't run away from it, no matter where you run to. Even if you run to a neighborhood that's not Black and brown, you have to take issues, situations, or stuff that happened to you, or what's happening in your neighborhood, to tell other people. So yeah.
Yeah, that's hard stuff though. Because when you first got locked up and people was saying in the hood and everything, I was just Vidal, for what and everything. It's when we was younger, I I didn't know much about what you was doing in the streets and everything. So we was outside, we was cool and everything, but it was just we just played ball. That's it. We hung out a few times outside the court and everything. But I didn't really know much about like what you was doing outside of that.
Yeah.
So when I heard it, I was like confused with everything. So basically, when you was in jail and everything, you read books and everything while you was in jail and everything. What books you read that like kept you in the right mindset to basically? Yeah, exactly. Like, not lose yourself, not go crazy, using solitary confinement. I know that could drive anybody crazy. And like, what motivated you to get out and just make a difference?
Yeah, man. I mean, one thing I had to question myself. I was part of the gang culture, and my opinion, there was a lot of individuals or a lot of stuff that was moving, or stuff that was being done, or stuff that I seen that didn't align with why it was created in the first place. My conversation was like, I was reading a lot of Black Panther's book. I was reading a lot of Young Lords. I was reading a lot of Fred Hampton, Malcolm X, and really reading a lot of these revolutionaries, individuals. And started really educating myself about why we exist, and like, and also knowing like certain issues that exist around me. And I think for me, like, reading books was a real important part in anyone's life, because it gets you prepared, but it also educates you on missing pieces that you was confused about. And I think being in solitary confinement for 2.5 years, being there for 2.5 years, being locked in. Imagine being locked in the place that's 1/3 of this for 23 hours, and then when you step out, you only step out to something smaller than this. And they call
it for like an hour.
And I think the part about that was me being the characters in the book. It sounds really imaginations. But it's a way that we all as a whole and as a human being try to attach ourselves from that issue or from whatever is happening around us. So I read a whole bunch of books, and I read my books through my time being in solitary confinement to slowly not lose my head, but I worked out in there, even knowing that they was trying to starve us to death, even though I was in hunger strikes. I was just trying to mentally keep myself leveled, because a lot of people in there, some people came in there and never came out the same.
They break.
And it's not even just even solitary or incarceration, right? So
Yes, that's crazy though. That's really, I can't even imagine how it is to be in jail. Like I don't even want to go to a jail. I don't want to step foot in no jail, anything like that. So for you to do all that, like, and to come out the way you did and everything, like, I commend you for that.
I appreciate you, bro.
No problem, man. So then, basically, next thing I want to talk about is your business endeavors. So you have the clothing line. Political X. So talk about that. Politic X.
Politic X is I created it. I was thinking about it in solitary confinement. It was 104 degrees. When it's hot,
it was 104 degrees in there.
No, it's 100. It's usually close to 8 or 9 degrees more higher. So outside it was 96 degrees, 93 degrees. In the cell, it would probably be like 8 to 9 more degrees higher. I remember it was like 102 degrees, 103 degrees in the cell. I was like butt naked, and I just got my subscribers to GQ. And one of the problems I started seeing was like, I seen a person of color, and they had an image, and the image was a white face, and I was like, whoa, And I think the complex about design and people who are designers is that people who are designers, especially people of color, are not, in my opinion, are not getting also radical and educating people about certain issues and creating clothing lines and images and or quotes or whatever to tell their story through their clothing line, right? And I think that's the problem that I've basically been seeing and I seen that was missing. And so I told myself I want to really educate myself and educate others about like the Young Lords and White Panthers, and you know, like when people talk about Nipsey, they say the marathon continue without understanding what exactly that meant. You know, all money in, no money out. You know, those are real like important, simple things to say, and it's catchy. But if you don't understand the real definition of them, of why he said that, or you know why people was doing this work, or I kind of seen even asking some of the young people like. Who's the Young Lords? You know, like I don't know, you know, and I think when we get that shrug or that I don't know, it's like we gotta educate our young people, and especially educate the younger generation to make sure that they know their history and they know why they're able to capably just walk around how they want to walk around, or they being able to vote when they want to vote, or being able to go to what school they want to go to, or being able to actually go to whatever school they want to go to, or dress how they want to, you know, and I think people got to understand that was organizing that was done that got us here, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. So then talked about that one. So we talked about the Latinx app.
Yeah. So I think everything is a bracket of education, right? Like the clothing line is not an activist; it's just an activist clothing line, but it's an educational clothing line. That's really dope and unique. It's going great. It's selling. People can look it up on politicxclothingline.org, and Instagram is politicxclothingline. And I think that is unique, so unique about it. But the our Latinx app, I'm coming out with an app real soon. I have partners I'm working on it with, and the app is going to be how do we create the bridge between organizations who are in Latinx countries, and figure out to make sure that we're organized and we know who really is doing the work. I just don't want to make sure what happened in Puerto Rico. You know, people, I'm not saying everyone had an ego problem, but there was a part where, you know, stuff didn't fall through as it was supposed to fall through. Food was going spoiled, and I know there was organizations who was out there, and those people who was out there who are really from the neighborhood and from the community, and we could have just gave everything to them. Yeah,
exactly.
And you know, I think the part that's powerful, how do we create that bridge, but keep educating people about their history, activists, and also educating people about where's brown-owned businesses, and how to keep the money in black and brown neighborhoods. And I think those are real major parts. And, you know, also changing policies. I think the problem is happening in, especially in the Latinx communities, when a large portion of Latinx individuals voted for Trump. That's a real shame. But it also says that we have a lot of educational tools that we need to use or need to be created to educate people. When people can catch up to saying all rapists and people are coming from Mexico, and that's not true, and especially Latinx people adjust and use that language, it tells us that we haven't educated ourselves. And then also knowing, like, we have to, you know, when we say unity between black and brown people, you know, brown people, we have to organize ourselves to understand certain issues and organize us as a whole to come to this work in the right place and right shape. So our Latinx app is the abilities to, you know, create bridges, do policy changing, but get people active and involved and educated. And those are real important parts, especially as someone who's, you know, worked on the ground as a grassroots organizer. Grassroots basically saying that I'm actually out in the neighborhood talking to people, having conversations, and understanding people and understanding their issues.
Basically just have an education for people, just enlighten them of stuff that they don't know.
And I think this app is different. You know, it's the first time that I'm kind of getting into the app world and the tech world. And I think in 2020 there's gonna be so many tech jobs and no one to take it, especially people of color like us. Those are six-figure jobs, but it's like we need to step in the tech world. And as myself being in a neighborhood, and loving tech, as like, and loving advocacy in this work, it's time for us to step in this work.
It is definitely time for us. So you have some books, right? Yeah, talk about those.
Yeah,
that you wrote.
Yeah, so right now.
And you say you're starting a publishing company.
So I'm starting a publishing company, and the reason why I think for anyone who's kind of listening to this, is like publishing companies are really important, right? It makes people know that you're serious about what you are selling, and and that you're serious about what you have wrote. So I came out with a book. It's called Victim to Street Politics. It's a poetry book through my inside and outside. And what I mean that is like, when I was in solitary confinement, I was writing poetry, and then when I came home, my adjustments of being home and, regular stuff that men do, falling in love, you know what I'm saying? The struggle, stuff, dealing with trauma. How do I write about it? So I think poetry is a real important part. And, it went so great. I sold 3,000 units. Wow. And I was like, yo, if I can, create a publishing company and maybe in the future, I'm still, stuff is still being worked through, so I can't really say so much about it. But yeah, that's where I'm trying to create an empire, as you see, and that's what I've been doing. I have from the app, I have basically on staff as partners. I think I'm up to 5 people who's working with me. The clothing line is just myself. The publishing stuff, I'm really looking for a partner for that. Hopefully we can, I'm looking for someone for that. I'm also coming out with my own market that is creating basically how to talk about how to keep the dollar in the neighborhood, but have entrepreneurs from Black and brown neighborhoods who are selling products or selling anything to be in the same space, and only us. Only Black and brown people, and is a reason why. Yeah. I think
we gotta really uplift each other pretty much.
And we gotta organize ourselves. So we gotta gut check each other. It's cool, but I think the space of us, just us, to really organize ourselves and say, okay, cool. We need to keep the dollar in our neighborhood. Yeah. People say so freely, but how do you do it? And I think this market would actually help people create that conversation. So yeah, it's a lot of things, a lot of moving pieces, but yeah, it's a must. And I'm asking for all the help. So let's get money. You know what I'm saying? All money and no money out there. So,
exactly. That's dope, man. That's dope. You're really doing your thing out here. I see you doing all this stuff. You do, like you said earlier, you do 1,000 things at once. But you're out here hustling. I appreciate it, man.
I appreciate you, man.
No problem. So, what's next for you? Are you gonna run for office or something?
Nah, man. I don't think so. I think I'm not really the whole office, running for office. As you know, I've been always run down on politicians. Tell them about themselves. But nah, I'm not really in the whole politician world. One of the reasons why is because policies get changed, and I hope hopefully I see other leaders who I work with will be able to use their leadership.
Take what they learn from you and everything and apply it to office.
They run, right? But I think for me, I'm more led with the abilities to create the community from the ground down, from the ground up. As I mean, like financial literacy, and being able to create a market, being able to create our own vision through our fashion, being able to create our own, our own tech hub in our own hood, right? Being able to have them hard conversations, being able to own our own properties, and being able to push ourselves as a whole to better ourselves. I think the problem that's happening now is when we talk about heaven and hell, it's Black and brown people, a lot of us is this is hell, right? Living in poverty and living in a lot of these positions. There's a lot of individuals who are living in heaven, you know what I'm saying, who are white and some people who, and why I say that, because it's a difference between how America treats people, not even just America, how this world treats people of color, right? And I think for America itself is how do we, as a whole, just keep, educating ourselves, but also letting people know we are frustrated about not what our ancestors been fighting for, right? Because I'm a brown man doesn't mean we didn't go through something, right? We, Dominican Republic with this at one point when we Hispaniola, when Spain and France was split the island, it's important for a lot of people to understand there's so many different issues, but as a whole, we do have the same pressures. And I think for us is just what I want to do is keep pushing other individuals to use their leadership and maybe have them run. I don't see myself kind of running. It's not because I don't want to. It's because that's not where I want my life or my lens to go through. I'm really just trying to create first generation wealth for everyone around my circle and people who are around me. And I think those are an important part. Like our neighborhood should be our kingdom, and how we treat our kingdom, it can say everything. So like, we got a lot of work, but I think
going the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. And then last thing, Close Rikers campaign. Talk about that.
Yeah, and I've been a part of the campaign for a little while. As a person who was impacted and survived and was traumatized by Rikers. This campaign is led by directly impacted people who have survived and been traumatized by Rikers. And that's the number one thing about organizing, is being led by the people most harmed. And this campaign is shaped and lensed through people's stories and people's leadership, understanding how do we close Rikers and what exactly is being done. So I've been organizing for the past 3.5 years, putting pressure, folding him, as people say, folding the mayor to commit to closing Rikers, but like really using our stories, organizing, especially for myself for the past 3.5 years, to not just educate people who are around our neighborhoods, that people detained still deserve human rights, right? And human rights is the ability to make sure people have the blueprints to return back to society, make sure people have are in places where, small things as like being able to look out the window, right? Or small places to have social services to operate in there. I was in the Tombs. The Tombs is a Manhattan facility. I also was on Rikers, right? I was on Rikers 2 years, and I also was on in the Tombs when I was 19 years old. And I had to climb the wall to look out the window.
Wow.
So, and I think for a lot of people, this campaign has gave hope to the country, but it's just the beginning. We have a lot of stuff to be fighting for, and we, because of us and our organizing, we have got communities that have been impacted and been criminalized by Rikers Island for 100 million, but we have to still keep, organizing and adjusting and making sure that we are building our communities, and we created a Build Community platform. That's a 28-page Build Community platform, by the people, for the people. So we got a lot of work to be done. It's just beginning, and yeah.
Well, everything seems to be going in the right direction. I'm proud of everything you're doing for the community and for yourself, for Black and brown people. And thank you for being on my podcast. I appreciate you coming on, telling your story, telling everything for like the community, pretty much. Just telling your story and trying to impact everybody.
Yeah, and this is it.
And that's just...
Yeah.
And where can they follow you on?
I am Vidal Guzman. I am Vidal, V-I-D-A-L. Last name Guzman, G-U-Z-M-A-N. So yeah, you can follow. When you follow my page, you can also, on my bio, you can also see our Latinx app. You can also see the clothing line and the market that's slowly and soon going to be starting. I just put up our logo there. And yeah, so I think clothing line is up now. Look through it, see what stuff you want, and stuff is selling out quick. Our app is going to be coming out soon, and I think that's going to be a real game changer for myself. And then I think the most powerful part is the market itself. I think with this, like people talk about the culture, this is gonna push us as inner city communities in a whole different structure and way to say, whoa, okay, this is dope. Yeah, so I have a lot of great ideas, a lot of thinking, and I think we will be able to do this.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, bro.
All right, man. Yeah. That was quick.
That's a wrap.